More now on the NFL labor talks. We're joined again by Robert Boland, professor of sports management at New York University. Professor Boland is a labor and antitrust lawyer who's negotiated more than 100 player and endorsement contracts in a variety of sports, including the NFL. And it's his second appearance here this week. Thank you for being gracious enough to come back.
Thank you for having me back, Mark.
What do you think of this news?
Well, it's significant on two levels. Yesterday's agreement to delay the deadline is the first real agreement that the players' union and the owners have had since the death of Gene Upshaw on any level, and it was a significant one.
The former head of the players' union.
Even if it's only was to delay for 24 hours, it certainly showed that the owners have come back to the table after the court decision, and maybe the optics of having the three biggest players in the sport line up as potential plaintiffs against them.
And we're talking about Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Peyton Manning deciding that they are going to be the ones that are going to be the face of the union going forward here.
Absolutely, and that's an enormously powerful weapon in the union's quiver.
Talk to me about what the owners are trying to do here. What do the owners want? We talked a lot about what the players want. What do the owners want?
Well, I think the owners saw, and it comes back to the untimely death of Gene Upshaw a couple of years ago from cancer that no one ever saw coming. When Upshaw passed away, I think there were owners who did not like the 2006 collective bargaining agreement. They thought it gave away too much of their local carve-outs for luxury revenue.
And Professor, I should mention we're looking at a live shot outside of where those talks are taking place in Washington.
When that happened, the owners lost a lot of their, they now had to share that revenue and just divide it with the players they made from luxury boxes, club seats, stadium naming rights, things they previously didn't share. And when that happened, the owners thought they were on a very tight margin. So they wanted to open up their margin again when they revisited this collective bargaining agreement. So that's really the product and what got us here. The owners would like to have more money given to them before they start dividing with the players, and maybe even change the divide with the players.
Is TV revenue on the table here at all? Is anybody talking about that?
TV revenue is part of the whole pot, and it's clearly the biggest part. It's about 55–60% of the whole pot.
And just for context, how much is the TV revenue in the NFL?
Somewhere between $4 billion and $5 billion annually.
I don't even know what to say. That's a staggering amount of money.
It is a staggering amount of money, but if you think about it this way, the NFL is the most watched piece of programming in the world.
Even more than football, soccer in Europe and in Latin America, South America?
Absolutely, at least from a television ratings perspective in the United States or in one country, it's the most watched piece of television programming we have here in the United States, and the Super Bowl is the most watched broadcast in the world.
I know we talked about this the other day, but I think it bears repeating. The significance of the hit that local economies are going to take if there is a strike in the National Football League next year. We're talking about communities around the nation, games, we're talking 16 weeks, so basically we're talking about 4 months of employment. I guess you could call that seasonal employment for a lot of people. How bad will it be if an agreement is not reached?
Well, if we had a lockout for next year, we can estimate anywhere between $100 billion and $300 billion in economic loss. Now, some of that might be substituted to other forms of entertainment, other forms of advertising, but the NFL is the biggest advertising platform in the United States for television commercials, for sponsorship, and for just the broadcast of commercials on games.
Talk to me about the two men who were at the heart of this, the NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell and the Players Union head DeMaurice Smith. Are these two men who can sit down comfortably at a table and try to figure something out?
Well, that's really the wild card in all of this, Mark. They haven't had a great deal of face-to-face history, and both are relatively new in their jobs, and both were hired to some degree for this situation. Goodell was named by the owners with the strict charge to go get a better labor deal by the owners, and Smith was hired essentially with the strict charge from the players: don't let them take from us. So it's a very interesting situation. It remains to be seen, but they've now had two agreements in 2 days over nothing incredibly substantive, but stopping the clock is good news for football fans.
I've always thought it was interesting because even though Roger Goodell is commissioner of the National Football League, he is in a sense the owner's advocate. He is there to protect the owner's interest. Is there a conflict there?
Well, there isn't a modern conflict. The commissioner now really has become the leader of the business of the sport.
Okay.
Historically, when Kennesaw Mountain Landis was hired as the first baseball commissioner, he was almost like the U.S. Supreme Court. He was detached from the operations and sort of sat in judgment. But what's happened is the modern innovation of the commissioner is they really run the sport on a day-to-day level.
Well, and Commissioner Boland, or Commissioner Boland, maybe he will be
Thanks
commissioner one day. Commissioner Landis, at least he ran with an iron fist. He's the one who kicked out shoeless Joe Jackson and some of the other in that Black Sox scandal.
Absolutely. I mean, now what's happened, though, that absolute ruler commissioner is no longer the case. Fay Vincent in baseball was the last one of those, and essentially the owners sort of rose up and replaced him with another owner. And that's really the case across the sports. All right.
NYU sports management Professor Robert Boland joining us to talk NFL football again. Professor, thanks. Good to see you again this week.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Appreciate it.